on the East Coast, it's our 1 and 4 o'clock games, and that brings us into that matchup for week 8. I do regret I have to put Ethan's name again there for last week's high score with our matchup last week.
5 weeks in a row, Aaron. 5 weeks.
I know you're on a hot streak. I had to kind of hand over the trophy to you this year, but yeah, hopefully, I really like my lineup list this week, and I think we got some nice plays. But hey, I'll let you take a little bit of moment to shine. In a told you so section. Any keys to success and for last week?
Yeah, I wish I had a little more keys. Like 116, that's an okay score. Nothing crazy. Um, but glad to take the victory with in our friendly contest here. But for I told you so, the Rams defense was a big one for me. 17 points at a cost of 3,000. So they came through for me. And then my guy Brock Bowers, 19.3 points at a cost of $5,800. So Brock Bowers just continues to dominate targets. I mean, I feel like he just setting records at the tight end position. I believe he has the most catches in the league right now with 47. So he's just he's playing like the generational talent I think he is, and he's the dynasty tight end one. He's fantasy's tight end one. And Brock Bowers just I can't stop talking about my guy Brock Bowers, but he was awesome last week. So that was some of the big hits for me that I discussed anyways on the pod.
Yeah, and as you said, the 116 is not super high. I know we're usually in the 130s to kind of brag a little bit more, but week 7 actually was a little bit lower scoring overall in DFS. I mean, it was about 20 points lower than normal. So even the 116 would have got you money back on the $1 million lineup. But that's generally you need to be in about the 130s. But yeah, even top place was about 20 or so points lower than normal as well. But we'll go on to week 8 where I think, there's a lot of nice plays here. I think we're going to get a bounce back week as far as fantasy goes and scoring goes as well. And we'll start with our bullish buy section, and that's where just players that we're really confident in. Sometimes they're a lot more expensive than the others, but ultimately it's a guy that we really think will deliver. Even if you're playing multiple lineups, you got this guy in every lineup. So it's funny when you kind of scan across this section, the bullish buy section between Yumi and Kamish. We all got Dolphins players this week. What do you know? So, looks like it's a clean sweep with Dolphins, but we do have two different names to talk about. And I guess I'll kind of lead off here and kind of talk for me and Kamish. We were kind of on the same page here, going Tyreek Hill for 7,000. And I think, a little bit of the logic there is Tyreek, that's actually pretty cheap for a Tyreek Hill. And, it kind of just goes back to the DraftKings algorithm where, he hasn't really been producing. He had like, what was it, like under 20 yards last week, I want to say, or even less.
Yeah.
But, pretty much had a abysmal week. So that kind of drops your average down. But the really big thing to track is if Tua plays, and I'm sure when we talk to on your side too, if Tua plays, he can really turn around that offense and the Dolphins. So I mean, I guess there's a big asterisk there. If Tua plays, I'm definitely putting Tyreek in my lineup. Looks like Kamish is too. But Ethan, if you want to comment on that, we can kind of go into your bullish buy.
Yeah, pretty much any Miami Dolphin is drastically underpriced if Tua comes back, which I expect him to come back. The value you get with Tyreek, he's 7,000. That's why I went with Devon A-Chain at 6,200. Even Jalen Waddle at 5,400 is insane value. So clearly like you said, the DraftKings algorithm hasn't really caught up to the fact that Tua is going to play, and this whole offense is just going to take a massive step forward. So, and whenever you can get Tyreek Hill in your lineup with a healthy Tua for 7,000, it's tough not to. He was definitely a guy I was considering just at that price point. I went in a little different direction to save a little bit of money, and I spent up on Devon A-Chain. And Devon A-Chain, he can score every time he touches the ball. With this price point, it was hard not to put him in my lineup. I mean, he's led Miami's backfield in carries in all 5 games he's been healthy. He's received 80% of his backfield rush attempts inside the 10-yard line, and he's averaged a 15.4% target share in those healthy games, second best in the team, ahead of Jalen Waddle, who has a 14.1% target share. So Devon Achane, he started off the season with a bang with 23 and 30 fantasy points, and obviously things kind of went south from there. But there's not a back in the league with more upside than Devon Achane on a per carry basis. He can just take it 80 yards, 50 yards any time he touches it. But there's actually a lot of good running back plays on the slate this week. I just went with the upside with Devon Achane with a price point of 6,200.
Yeah, it's definitely a home run cut for sure. I mean, they are playing Arizona, and I mean, if you didn't know what teams are playing, it kind of looked like it was like Ravens versus Steelers back in the early 2000s on that Monday night with the just bunch of field goals
I know.
in that Chargers Arizona game. But Arizona's not that great on defense. It's just kind of, Chargers just kind of play slow as well. So yeah, I mean, I think the Dolphins offense against Arizona D is definitely a good play. We're all on the same page there. So hopefully Tua plays, and then we should see a lot more scoring. But we'll actually move on to the next segment here in the too deep section. As you scan across teams here, I think it might be fun. I'll back up a little bit. So too deep, obviously this is going to be defenses that can win. That can definitely help make sure you get back some money if you're scoring 8+ points. It's kind of what I've seen. You need your defense at least getting 8 to really be in the money. If you get a big fat 0, it's like, hey, why even bother? So what we'll do is let's actually start with most expensive. So it looks like Kamish is going most expensive this week, going with the Chiefs defense. So my beloved Chiefs, playing the Raiders. So got a in division game, Chiefs Raiders. Really his big point on this game is, Raiders don't really know what they're doing at QB. Right when they made the QB switch, O'Connell went right back on IR, and they got to go back to Minshew again. And then really the final point is, I know. Mahomes gets a lot of credit, but it's, for really the last 2 years that the Chiefs D is really kind of carrying the team as far as just dominating teams, even against good offenses. So, hey, those are Commissioner's words, not mine, Ethan. But yeah, any thoughts on the Chiefs D for this week?
I mean, the Chiefs have a very good defense, and to Commissioner's point, they have been kind of carrying that team. Mahomes doesn't really have to put up a ton of points to get victories. I mean, Mahomes in that offense, it's been pretty ugly this year so far, especially fantasy wise. So that Chiefs defense is playing well. I mean, they're not doing great in terms of scoring fantasy points. They've only scored double-digit fantasy points once this year. So I think I don't, and I'm sure Kamish used his entire budget, but if he could squeeze out another $100, I think you could have started the Denver Broncos defense at 3,700, which I think has a much better matchup. I know Gardner Minshew and the Raiders are kind of in disarray, but my guy Brock Bowers is going to carve up the Kansas City Chiefs this week. But no, I mean you can't go wrong with. I mean, right now the Raiders are giving up a lot of points to opposing defenses. So don't hate the call. I like a few more. I like a couple other defenses better, but it's hard to argue with the defense playing as well as Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, I physically had the Chiefs in my lineup at first, and it's funny, I actually had your defense too. I had the Ravens too. So we'll talk to we'll go talk the Baltimore matchup next. But yeah, I mean, I toyed around with both of your teams, and I'll talk my cheap one at the end there. But we'll let you kind of talk on the Ravens here next for your defensive play.
Yeah, the Ravens are playing a very, very, very bad football team in the Cleveland Browns. I mean, it's pretty simple. Mr. Pick Six himself, famous Jameis Winston, is starting at quarterback. That's
Yes.
what that's what the reports are saying. So, I mean, most of these numbers are with Deshaun Watson. I mean, who is playing absolutely putrid football. But I mean, the Cleveland Browns offense, they're 30th in pass yards a game, 28th in rush yards, 32nd in total yards, and 29th in points. Uh, like I said, Winston's going to be starting. I mean, when he was playing quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he was great for fantasy, but he would always start every game with a pick six. Get that out of the way, and then he just
That's right.
throwing
Just
TDs.
slinging it.
But I mean, the Ravens made Baker look not very good at times. Yeah, last night, Baker really didn't put up points until kind of garbage time. The game was well out of reach, and then Baker just started kind of compiling stats. But I mean, Baker was throwing. He threw 2 picks. They were down by a bunch, and then like I said, the Ravens, it felt like they called off the dogs, and Baker and that Bucks offense kind of took off late in that fourth quarter. But I think the Ravens at 3,400 was. I don't know. I think I was leaning between two defenses this week. It was Denver and Baltimore. The only reason why I went Baltimore is because I need to save a few $100, but I think they're going to have a field day against Jameis Winston and just the anemic Cleveland Browns defense. I mean, Cleveland Browns offense. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I love that call for sure. I mean, another thing that sticks out to me is the Ravens have the best run defense in the league, as well too. So I mean, if anything was going for the Browns, it was having a Chubb back and maybe running the ball. But I mean, hey, now he's got to go up against the best run defense in the league. So that could maybe make him dimensional as well. And this, like you said, Winston just kind of out there slinging slinging it around.
Yeah, that's another reason why I don't really love commissions picking the Chiefs. I think the Ravens are going to outscore the Chiefs rather easily. I mean, we'll find out pretty soon here, but I just think the Ravens are a much better play than Kansas City, especially with, like I said, Kansas. It's not like Kansas City is racking up a ton of fantasy points, and with Jameis Winston, the Cleveland Browns, they're going to be giving away fantasy points to the Baltimore Ravens defense.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they're good plays I think they're safe plays either way. I definitely went a little more risky. I went a little bit more down and dirty, going with the Dirty Birds. I went ATL for only 2,600 for my defense this week, and like I said, I was playing around with my lineup a little bit. There's a lot of matchups certain players I really wanted to get in my lineup. And when I looked at Atlanta, I'm like, hey, that's probably the cheapest defense that has a shot of making something happen, right? So they're playing Tampa Bay, okay, this week. Whereas, as we said earlier in the show, that they just lost Mike Evans, they just lost Chris Godwin, right? Who really are Mayfield's safety blankets. I mean, Atlanta is favored in this game as the away team, and as I also said earlier, that defenses travel as well. So if you can shut up a team, it's if you kind of play good defense on the road. And Atlanta actually has a pretty decent run defense. So Tampa Bay is not a good running team, and they just lost their best offensive weapons throwing the ball. So I also think Atlanta can turn Tampa Bay dimensional as well, where they're going to force Baker to throw it, and he has no weapons to throw to. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I brought up the average depth to tackle earlier on the Thursday night matchup with the Rams being the worst, but Atlanta's actually tied for fourth best average depth of tackle under 4 yards at 3.6. So, as I said, they're pretty good running the run defense. They're cheap, and Baker just lost his weapons. So that's kind of my logic there for 2,600.
No, the logic's pretty sound there. You're getting a very cheap defense, and you're getting a reeling Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, like you said, who just lost their two best weapons. So that's why I think Rashad White's actually a sneaky kind of play, because I think he's gonna kind of go back to his 2023 form where he's just gonna get peppered out of the backfield. So
Yeah.
Rashad White, maybe you gotta to bet his over in terms of his receptions this week. Probably not a bad play there. But I mean, the Falcons, like I said, the Ravens made Baker and that offense look pretty anemic at times. Like I said, he threw two pretty bad picks. They weren't really moving the ball very well after those first couple of drives. So now, minus Godwin, minus Mike Evans, I think the Falcons can wreak some havoc. So definitely at a price point of 2,600, you don't need a ton of points to return value. So when you are diving deep, I think the Atlanta Falcons are a good call against a divisional opponent. They know each other, which is going to make it even hard on Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now they have, 1 week to kind of figure it out with Sterling Shepard, McMillan, and guys like that.
Right, right. Yeah, well, I mean, we'll definitely see. As I said, if you had the money and the budget to spend, I do like you and Commission's plays, but I had to save some money and I didn't mind going ATL here. But we'll go on to one of the most fun sections to talk about, and that's our pick six category. That's this is where this is our value plays traditionally. They're pretty cheap depending on what position we're talking about. But let's actually knock out Kamish's here. He's got for us. So he's going Caleb Williams for 6,000 this week playing against Washington, and he's going David Njoku in that Ravens game. So Ethan, what are your thoughts on Kamish's two pick six players?
I really like him. Caleb Williams has been coming into his own. He's been great the last couple of weeks, and now he has a very good plus matchup against the Commanders. It would be nice if Daniels was playing on the other side. That would be kind of cool, seeing both rookie quarterbacks going head to head. But unfortunately, he's probably going to miss this with a rib injury. But Caleb Williams against that Commander secondary should wreak havoc with those weapons. So I really like that at a price point of 6,000. I'm actually surprised Caleb Williams is that cheap. So definitely like that call a lot. And I love the Njoku call as well. Njoku is the team's number one target.
Yeah.
He's the alpha receiving weapon in that offense. Jameis Winston at quarterback, he's not afraid to chuck the ball. So I think Njoku is going to get absolutely peppered. I see easily another 10 plus targets for David Njoku. I would get him in your lineups where you can.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with both picks there too. I mean, Caleb is definitely turning the corner a little bit, trying to make it pretty competitive in that division as well. So yeah, I think we're seeing progression from Caleb Williams each week too. So I mean, as we said, he's going against Washington in the past too. As you, he I know Washington looked like the
Yeah,
85 Bears
they
last
really did.
against Carolina. But yeah, I think Williams can kind of put up a little bit more flashy plays. So I think a little bit of little extra tidbit of information. I think he's stacking more with Caleb this week, so not a
Uh,
bad option there.
no, I have DJ Moore in my lineup as well. So I like the matchup, and I think Caleb Williams is going to do some work against that Commander secondary.
Agree. And then and then the David Njoku play, I think, as you said, that's really the best target to throw to on the Browns. And the Ravens actually do give up a little bit of extra plays to slot receivers and tight ends this year. They've given up some big plays overall in their secondary. I mean, you're probably not going to get Marlon Humphrey on David Njoku. I wouldn't think he's still going to be on the outside. So Njoku should get peppered, as you said. So I think that's a pretty solid call there.
Yeah, no, I think Kamish's Njoku against the Baltimore Ravens kind of ties into a couple of our call outs in Kate Otten, who just
Yes.
played who just played the Baltimore Ravens and had a hell of a day. In full point PPR, I believe he scored 18 points against the Ravens. I know Baker was was chucking the ball late in that game, but Cade Otton was making some plays, and he did work. And I guess I'll get right into it. Cade Otton, he is going to be one of the primary pass catchers for the Bucks. Obviously, we with Evans and Godwin out, but Cade Otton's averaging 7 targets a game, which is tight end 6 amongst targets, 51.6 receiving yards a game, tight end 10 if you're ranking them since week 3, and he's led the Buccaneers in first read target share 24.1% and receiving yards 100 on a night where Mike Evans got hurt and Chris Godwin obviously went down late in that game. So it's more so with the Mike Evans injury, but obviously now with Chris Godwin out, that's going to increase those numbers. But Otton ranks 3rd amongst tight ends in routes, 198, and 4th in targets, 39. So Cade Otton has been a big part of this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. He plays, I mean, he's always on the field. So I think Cade Otton is going to get a bump in targets. And I think definitely DK has not adjusted his price enough. I mean, 3,400 is way too low for a guy like Cade Otton who should get peppered.
Yeah, I mean, I like it so much. As you see, I have him in my lineup as well too. So, I think we said this last week that, there is a world you can have the defense and the opposing tight end on your DFS lineup, and that's as we said, like they're gonna have to pepper, they're gonna have to dink and dunk down the field as well. And but just on top of everything you said, just with the injuries, I think on no matter what is going to be involved. So I mean, he was before, and I think he is now, definitely after these injuries. And then, really agree with everything you said. Don't really need to add too much on Naughton. I will say one thing about Atlanta's defense is they've actually given up the second most receptions in the league, to slot wide receivers and tight ends. So the reason why I like grouping those two together is it's really the same position group that's covering both guys, right? You either got your nickel corners or safeties and linebackers, and kind of what I look at is a combination of those. So Atlanta has given up the most receptions, and it just kind of affords, right into that gameplay with Otton. So definitely love that call. And I'll go into my final pick 6, and I was laughing about this. I was trying to figure out which picture I wanted to show to see if you kind of knew who I was talking about now, who I'm showing there. But it's funny. I wanted to do one without a helmet on as well. Because go ahead.
I mean, it's very hard to see the picture, but is that Kamani Vidal?
No,
It
no.
looks like it looks like he had 3. Is that 20?
So do this for me.
It's tough to see.
Get a picture of our beloved Kamish, feed him some steroids, jack him up a little bit, and you know what you get? You get a Will
Oh,
Disley.
oh God, is that Will Disley?
That's Will
Oh
Disley.
God,
That is a Kamish on steroids, my friend. So
a lot of steroids, a lot of steroids.
that's right. Yes, so it's kind of funny. So I'm going with a double tight end set this week in my DFS lineup.
It,
I'm going
it,
Otten
it,
and Disley.
it's funny. It's funny you say double tight ends because I went double tight end as well, but I went with a slightly more high profile guy than than Will Disley. Hey, I'll let you guess who is in my lineup. Who's my second
Oh
tight
my
end?
gosh. Let me guess. Does it a double B word?
Oh, it is. It is. Yes. I mean,
That's
hey, we all know Kansas City is one of the worst defenses against the tight end, and Minshew's not going to have many other options but to throw him the football. So another big game for my guy Brock Bowers. So, but yeah, so double tight ends around.
Love how you snuck Bowers into
Yeah.
this one there. But yeah, going back to Kamish on steroids and Will Disley, it's not definitely not a sexy play, for sure. And you kind of look at it, but would you have guessed that Disley just caught eight catches in their Monday night football matchup against Arizona? He had 11 targets, 8 catches, 81 yards, right? So that's going to get you at least 16 points that he gave you in fantasy. Hayden Hurst was injured, so obviously Disley took advantage of that. But you know, the
When you said commission on steroids, I was thinking Hayden Hurst, the redhead, carrot top there.
it's close. I mean, Disley's
Yeah.
also carrot top, so so kind of the united. It's funny they got the duo over there
Yeah.
for Hurst and Disley, but I also like it. I mean, his matchup against New Orleans. They're also horrible covering tight ends as well. And so I keep bringing up this stat here, just the slot and tight end position group. Now, New Orleans, they're as I said, not just receptions, but just total yards. They've given up over 540 yards to those position groups this year. So definitely give up a lot of yards in the air to your slot corners, to your tight ends, right? So I like going back to that position in this matchup. Super cheap. My only two cheap plays in my lineup. The rest are just stud after
They, be-
stud. So.
if you're starting Will Disley, you better have studs in your lineup.
Oh yeah. This is probably my favorite lineup I've had all year, and it's funny. It's going with the double tight ends. But what do you think of the double tight ends here? The Will Disley play, and then we'll move on to yours.
I mean, I love the K dot and play. Will Disley, I mean, obviously he had a pretty good day against Arizona. Uh, with QJ, QJ was out in this game, so maybe that led to increased targets for Disley. I think Joshua Palmer he was the second leading receiver with like 63 yards, or whatever. Then McConkey, I don't think he even broke 50. So it was not a night where Justin Herbert actually threw for almost 350 yards, no
Right.
touchdowns, but he actually I think had his highest total passing yardage of the season. So hopefully they can keep that up, because Justin Herbert's just been so bad fantasy wise. Um, in terms of just putting up points. So, I mean, double tight end. I mean, I take my double tight ends over yours just because my guy's in there. But no, I mean, hey, maybe Will Disley can keep it going in week 8, but definitely a risky call. But at 3,000, you don't need a ton of points to get return on value. But like you said, I mean, 2,600 for your defense, and then two flex plays, or one tight end and a flex play under 4,000. Your other pieces are probably pretty stacked.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's part of the play I really like about it as well. But yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see what the Will Disley play. I do think he'll kind of take over as the tight end, even if Hayden Hurst does come back. I do think Disley's done enough, and he hasn't been blinked all year. He's been putting up points all year. I mean, yes, not his Monday Night Football game, but he's getting his 6 to 8 plus points every week. He hasn't put up a goose egg yet, so I'm hoping this is not the week is his goose egg week. But he's been shown he's going to get involved in the offense, and I think does go back to that Chargers offense. They are a dink and dunk team, and that does set up your tight ends to get some fantasy points when you're just dinking and dunking around.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So that'll bring me to my final pick six player, and it's another rookie quarterback, Bo Nix. And I think Bo Nix is kind of drastically undervalued. His price point's very low at 5,600. I think he has a prime matchup against the Carolina Panthers, who allow the most points per game. This year, they're 25th in pass yards allowed per game and 30th in total yards a game. I mean, Nix has been pretty good. He's had basically four in the last 5 games. He's had four pretty good weeks. He had 19.3. Then he had the dud against the Jets, 6.7, but then 23.1, 21.7, and then he had 14.1 last Thursday. But they destroyed the Saints, so he didn't really have to do much. So I just like this matchup. I think he's primed to have a good passing game, and Bo Nix is pretty safe in terms of his rushing floor. He has 47 total rushing attempts, which ranks sixth amongst 31 NFL quarterbacks with at least 10 rushing attempts, and he has a PFF rushing grade of 72.2, which ranks 11th. Bo Nix has 10 red zone rush attempts, just one behind Javonte Williams. Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, and Jaden Daniels are the only other quarterbacks who have run more in the red zone than Bo Nix. He ranks number 2 with 26 scrambles. And then just looking at the defense, uh, their PFF pass rush grade for the Carolina Panthers, 48.1. That's last in the league, 32nd. Quarterback pressure rate, 23.3%. That's number 32 in the league. Their PFF coverage grade, 54.1, number 27 in the league. And then explosive pass plays allowed rate, 18.3%. That's number 32 in the league. So I predict Bo Nix to have some pretty explosive plays. I expect him to have a very solid rushing floor this week. So I think at a price point of $5,600, I thought that was a very solid value play, and it allows me to get a pretty stacked lineup across the board.
Yeah, I like that play. I mean, I was kind of looking forward to arguing with you a little bit, Ethan, this week, but I couldn't really because as I said, I had the Ravens in my lineup at one point in time. I was considering throwing Bo Nix in there. I went a little bit different, but yeah, I like that call. I mean, they're playing Carolina, great matchup. He's gonna, I like his floor as well. So yeah, he's actually a pretty safe play at 5,600 for a quarterback. And you two can, I'm sure you got some nice stats. I guess the only one I really can argue with a little bit is A Chain. Considering I got Tyreek in my lineup, but that's really the only hair splitting hairs I can do this week for our lineups.
No, it's I wish you and Kamish the best and try to take me down. Yeah, I'm going
You
for
need
win
it.
six in a row
I
here.
know
Let's
this is
go.
the week. This is the week. I had to switch. I had to go dirty with Disley and get
You had to put
and
you had
put
you
some heavy hitters in.
you had to put Kamish on steroids in your lineup to give yourself a chance.
That's right. That's right. Uh, all right. So let's go on to hot takes. You see him on the screen. I'll kind of jump right into mine. I'm gonna say Tyreek goes off with Tua. I think he take the plus over 110 yards receiving. Also find if he catches a reception over 40-yard catch, and then take his anytime touchdown. Don't know what those odds are yet, but they got to be pretty good. So that's my hot take. I think Tyreek has a big day with Tua.
Yeah, no, Tyreek's bound to go off one of these weeks, and Tua's back, so why not this week? I mean, he has a pretty good matchup against Arizona, so definitely something that I can see happening. Unfortunately, like you said, we don't have the odds because it's only Tuesday and they haven't come out yet. Because I was wondering what my Bo Nix hot take would
Yes.
look like, especially with those over 50 yards rushing. But yeah, I expect him to get at least 2 passing touchdowns and over 50 rushing yards. So I think Bo Nix has a very good day, and I think he ends up as a top 12 fantasy quarterback in week 8.
I like it. It's probably like a plus three, definitely in the 300s for
Oh,
sure.
with
So
the over 50 rushing yards, yeah, that's going to give you some juice right there.
for sure, for sure. So I like it. Like I said, I hope that hits. I'll definitely play more than one lineup this week. Kind of mix in all of our plays a little bit. As long as I gotta celebrate getting commish in my lineup more than once too. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess with all that said, that's kind of end of this week. Keep reaching out to us as I said on the socials. But until then, everyone, peace.